Commander Zethka looked at the screen with 4 eyes that had seen many strange things in his long life. The monitoring station floated in the dark space at the edge of what the galaxy called Terran space. Most beings avoided this area. The council said it was empty. Nothing lived here but primitive creatures who had not yet learned to travel between stars. But today was different. Today, something was coming. "Commander," called out Officer Nimro from her station. Her 6 arms moved quickly over the controls. "We have a contact. Large ship moving very fast toward our position." Zethka moved his tall, thin body over to look at her screen. The ship was still far away, but their sensors could see it clearly. It was big. Much bigger than most ships that came to ask for counsel. "Membership? Speed?" he asked. "Impossible," Nimro said, her voice shaking a little. "The readings show it is moving faster than our best ships, but that cannot be right. These humans are primitive. They just learned to leave their homeworld." Zethka thought about this. The council had files on every species in the galaxy. The humans were listed as young and weak. They had only recently built their first starships. They knew nothing about real space travel or war. They were no threat to anyone. "Run the scan again," he ordered. "Check for errors." But the scan came back the same. The ship was moving at speeds that should tear it apart. No known technology could make a ship go that fast and still hold together. "Sir," said another officer. This one was Krikvo, who worked on communications. "Should we send the standard greeting? If this is first contact, we need to follow the rules." Zethka nodded. The council had clear rules about meeting new species. First, they would send friendly messages. Then they would offer gifts and knowledge. Finally, they would invite the new species to join the council. It always worked the same way. Every species wanted to be part of the galactic community. "Send the greeting," he said. "Use the basic translation program. These humans probably only know their own language." The message went out across space. It told the human ship that they were welcome. It explained that the council wanted to be friends. It offered them knowledge and help to join the galaxy in peace. The human ship kept coming. It did not slow down. It did not answer. "Send it again," Zethka ordered. Maybe they did not receive it properly. They sent the message 5 more times. Each time, silence came back. The human ship grew larger on their screens. Soon they could see it clearly. Zethka had never seen anything like it. Most ships in the galaxy were smooth and curved. They looked peaceful and friendly. This human ship looked like a weapon. It had sharp edges and dark metal. Strange ports covered its surface. The space around it seemed to bend and twist in ways that hurt to look at. "By the void," whispered Officer Nimro. "What is that thing?" "It is just a ship," Zethka said, but his voice did not sound sure. "A primitive ship built by a young species. Nothing more." The human ship stopped moving. It hung in space about 1 light minute away from the monitoring station. Close enough to talk, far enough to run if needed. This was normal for first contact. Most species were careful during their first meeting with the council, then the communications. Board lit up. A message was coming from the human ship. "Finally," said Zethka. "Put it on the main screen." The screen flickered and showed a human face. Zethka had seen pictures of humans in the council files, but seeing one speak was different. The human looked young but had old eyes. Scars marked his face. His hair was short and gray. He wore some kind of uniform that looked both simple and deadly. When the human spoke, his words were clear and cold. The translation program worked perfectly. Too perfectly, Zethka thought. How did these primitives have such good translation technology? "Council monitoring station," the human said. "I am Captain Sarah Chun of the human vessel Determination. You will surrender this system immediately. Remove all your people and equipment within 6 hours. This is your only warning." Zethka stared at the screen. This was not how first contact was supposed to work. New species were supposed to be grateful. They were supposed to ask for help. They were supposed to want to join the council. "I think there's been a mistake," Zethka said carefully. "We are not here to fight. We are here to welcome you to the galactic community. The Council offers friendship and knowledge. We want to help your species grow and learn. The human captain did not smile. She did not look happy or grateful. She looked like a predator studying prey. 6 hours, she repeated. After that, we will remove you ourselves. We did not come here to negotiate. We came here to claim what belongs to humanity. But this system is empty, Zethka protested. There are no planets with life, no resources worth fighting over. Why do you want it? Because it is ours, Captain Chun said simply. Every star system within 50 light-years of Earth belongs. To humanity now, we are not asking for permission. We are telling you to leave. Officer Nimro made a small sound of fear. Krikvo looked confused. This was not in any of their training programs. The Council had dealt with aggressive species before, but they usually wanted something specific. Territory or resources or technology. The humans seemed to want everything. Please reconsider, Zethka said. The Council has been peaceful for 1,000 years. We do not want war. Surely we can reach an agreement that helps both our species. Captain Chun leaned forward in her chair. Her cold eyes seemed to look right through the screen at Zethka. The Council has been peaceful, she said, because no one has been strong enough to challenge you. You take worlds from weak species and call it diplomacy. You force cultures to change and call it progress. You steal resources and call it trade. We have studied your methods for years. That is not true, Zethka said quickly. The Council helps species develop. We share technology and knowledge. We bring peace to the galaxy. You bring slavery, Captain Chun replied. Pretty slavery with nice words, but slavery all the same. Every species that joins the Council loses something important. Their independence. Their culture, their right to choose their own path. We will not let that happen to humanity. The communication ended. The screen went dark. Zethka stood in silence for a long moment. His 4 eyes tried to make sense of what had just happened. In all his years of service, no species had ever spoken to the Council that way. Sir, Officer Krikvo said quietly. What should we do? Zethka looked at his crew. They were all staring at him, waiting for orders. These were good beings who had served the Council faithfully for years. They believed in peace and cooperation. They had never seen real war. Contact the Council immediately, he ordered. Tell them we have a problem. A big problem? While Krikvo sent the emergency message, Zethka studied the human ship on his screen. It had not moved. It just waited there in space like a patient hunter. The weapon ports he had noticed before were now clearly visible. They were bigger than he had first thought. Much bigger, sir, Nimro called out. I am reading massive energy. Build up in the human ship. They are powering weapons. Raise our shields, Zethka ordered. Full power. The monitoring station had good shields. They were designed to protect against the radiation of nearby stars and the impact of space debris. They had never been tested against weapons, but they should hold against anything a primitive species could build. The human ship fired. It was not a missile or an energy beam like Council weapons. It was something else entirely. Something that made space itself twist and burn. The blast hit their shields and kept going. The energy barriers that should have stopped anything simply disappeared. Alarms screamed throughout the station. Emergency. Lights flashed red and yellow. The artificial gravity failed for a moment, making everyone float helplessly before coming back online. Shields down to 30%, Nimro reported. Her voice was high with panic. That was just a warning shot. If they fire again with full power? She did not finish the sentence. She did not need to. Everyone on the station understood. They would all die. ZIS-Ka opened communications with the human ship again. Captain Chain appeared on screen looking exactly the same as before, calm, patient. Deadly, you have 4 hours and 57 minutes, she said before Zethka could speak. I suggest you use them wisely. The screen went dark again. Zethka looked around at his crew. These were trained Council officers. They had dealt with difficult situations before. But this was different. This was not diplomacy or negotiation. This was a promise of death. "How long until the council fleet arrives?" he asked. Kr. Ikivo checked his communications board. "The nearest patrol is 3 days away. The main fleet could be here in a week." Too long, Zethka thought. Much too long. He looked at the human ship again. It waited in space like a sleeping giant. One ship against a council monitoring station. The humans should be afraid. They should be trying to talk or run or hide. Instead, they gave ultimatums to the most powerful force in the galaxy. For the first time in his long life, Commander Zethka began to wonder if the council had made a terrible mistake. They had always assumed that any species advanced enough for space travel would want to join their peaceful civilization. They had never considered what would happen if they met a species that did not want peace. They had never considered what would happen if they met a species that wanted war. The countdown continued. 4 hours and 55 minutes. 4 hours and 54 minutes. Each second brought them closer to a choice that would change everything. Surrender and admit that the council could be defeated by a single ship, or fight and probably die. To prove that the council would never back down, Zethka looked at his crew one more time. Then he made his decision. "Send a message to all nearby systems," he ordered. "Tell them that humanity is not what we thought. Tell them that the humans did not come for diplomacy." He paused and looked at the alien ship on his screen. Tell them that the humans came for war. The Great Council chamber had not seen such chaos in 300 years. Representatives from 12 sectors filled the curved seats, their voices mixing into a loud buzz of fear and anger. Above them, the massive viewing screen showed the same image over and over. The human ship called Determination floating in space next to the wreckage of monitoring station. 7 Alpha, Elder Vrixnu raised his ancient hand for silence. His species had been part of the council since its beginning. His people had helped build the peaceful galaxy they all knew today. When he spoke, others listened. "Brothers and sisters," his voice carried clearly through the chamber, "we face a new challenge today. A single ship from an unknown species has destroyed one of our monitoring stations. They claim territory that belongs to the galactic community." Murmurs ran through the crowd. Some delegates looked worried. Others looked angry. All of them looked to Vrixnu for answers. "The humans," Vrixnu continued, "appear to be a young species. Our files show they only recently developed space travel. They have no knowledge of galactic law or diplomatic protocol. This attack was probably a mistake born of ignorance and fear." Admiral Kestor stood up from her seat in the military section. She was tall and strong, with the blue skin and silver hair of her warrior people. She had served the council for 200 years without losing a single battle. "Elder Vrixnu speaks wisely," she said. "But we cannot ignore this attack. If we do nothing, other primitive species might think they can challenge the council too. We must respond with strength." Many delegates nodded their agreement. The council had kept peace for 1,000 years by showing that violence would not be tolerated. When young species acted badly, the council corrected them. It was for their own good and the good of the galaxy. "What do you suggest, Admiral?" asked Vrixnu. "I will take the 47th Pacification Fleet to human space," Kestor replied. 300 ships should be enough to make them understand their mistake. We will accept their surrender and begin the process of bringing them into the council properly." Some delegates looked unsure. 300 ships seemed like a lot to use against one species that only had a few primitive vessels. But Admiral Kestor was the expert on military matters. If she said 300 ships were needed, then 300 ships were needed. "The humans have shown advanced weapons technology," pointed out Delegate Quinessé from the science sector. "Their single-shot penetrated council shields that should have stopped any known weapon. Perhaps we should study them more before we act." Admiral Kestor made a dismissive sound. "One lucky shot does not make them dangerous. They probably found some old technology from a dead civilization. Once we capture their ship, our scientists can figure out how it works." Elder Vrixnu considered this. The Admiral was probably right. The council had seen this before. Young species sometimes found ancient weapons or technology that made them think they were powerful, but they never understood how to use it properly. A real military force would show them the difference between owning a weapon and knowing how to fight. Very well, Vrixnu decided. Admiral Kestor will take the 47th Fleet to human space. Your orders are to accept their surrender and begin integration protocols. Use only the force necessary to make them understand their position. The Admiral saluted. It will be done, Elder. The humans will learn to be part of our peaceful galaxy. 3 days later, the 47th Pacification Fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Terran system. Admiral Kestor stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Eternal Peace, and looked at the tactical display. 300 ships arranged in perfect formation. Each one was a kilometer long and packed with enough firepower to destroy a moon. Together, they represented the might of galactic civilization. Any sign of the human fleet? She asked her tactical officer. Sensors show only one ship, Admiral, came the reply. The same vessel that destroyed the monitoring station. It is waiting. At the edge of the system, Kestor frowned. Where were the other human ships? Intelligence reports said they had at least a dozen vessels. Not much compared to her fleet, but enough to put up some kind of fight. Fighting just one ship would hardly send the right message to the galaxy. Open communications, she ordered. The main screen showed the bridge of the human ship. The same. Captain, who had spoken to the monitoring station, sat in a simple chair. She looked calm and relaxed, as if facing 300 warships was nothing unusual. I am Admiral Kestor of the Galactic Council, the Admiral announced. You are surrounded and outnumbered. Surrender immediately and prepare to be boarded. Your species will be given the chance to join our peaceful community if you cooperate. Captain Chun smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a predator who had found easy prey. Admiral, she said politely, I am Captain Sarah Chun. Thank you for bringing your fleet to our system. It saves us the trouble of hunting you down one ship at a time. Kestor blinked in. Surprise? You cannot be serious. You have one ship. We have 300. Surrender now and your people will be treated well. You brought a fleet to a fair fight, Captain Chun replied. We brought one ship to an unfair one. Your 300 ships are about to become 300 targets. You have 60 seconds to surrender before we begin. Laughter came from several. Stations on the Admiral's bridge. Her officers could not believe what they were hearing. One human ship threatening an entire council fleet. It was beyond ridiculous. Captain Chun, Admiral Kestor said firmly, you are clearly suffering from some kind of mental breakdown. Perhaps the stress of first contact has affected your judgment. I will give you one more chance to surrender. Peacefully. 30 seconds, Captain Chun said. The Admiral had heard enough. These humans were obviously insane. She would have to cure them of their madness the hard way. All ships, she commanded. Form attack formation. Prepare to disable the human vessel. Use minimum force. We want prisoners, not wreckage. Her fleet moved like a train dance. 300 ships arranged themselves in a perfect sphere around the lone human vessel. Every weapon was aimed at the small ship in the center. One word from the Admiral would turn it into glowing particles. Time's up, Captain Chun announced. The human ship moved. Kestor had seen many battles in her long career. She had fought pirates and rebels and rogue AI systems. She thought she knew what space combat looked like. She was wrong. The human ship did not move like other vessels. It did not obey the normal rules of physics. It simply appeared in a new location without traveling through the space between. One moment it was in the center of her formation. The next moment it was behind her flagship, and the ship that had been there was gone. Report, she shouted over the alarms that were now screaming throughout her bridge. The righteous fury is destroyed, her tactical officer reported. The human ship somehow teleported behind it and fired a single shot. The ship is just ... Before Kestor could respond, the human ship moved again. Another council vessel disappeared in a flash of twisted light, then another, and another. All ships, fire at will, the Admiral ordered. Target the human vessel with everything we have. Her fleet opened fire. Thousands of energy beams and missiles filled the space where the human ship had been, but it was not there anymore. It was somewhere else, destroying another council ship. The battle lasted 17 minutes. When it was over, Admiral Kestor floated in the wreckage of her flagship, her life support running low, watching the human ship hover in space where her mighty fleet had been. Only 12 council ships remained, and they were barely functional. The other 288 had been turned into expanding clouds of superheated metal and plastic. An entire fleet destroyed by a single enemy vessel. Her communications system crackled to life. Captain. Chion's face appeared on her emergency screen. Admiral Kestor, the human said. You and your surviving ships will return to Council space immediately. You will carry a message to your leaders. Tell them that humanity claims all space within 50 light-years of Earth. Any Council presence in our territory will be removed. Any attempt to interfere with human expansion will result in the complete destruction of Council forces. This is impossible, Kestor whispered. One ship cannot defeat an entire fleet. It violates every law of physics and military science. Your physics, Captain Chun corrected her. Your military science. We play by different rules, Admiral. Rules you do not understand yet. The human captain leaned forward in her chair. Her expression became serious and cold. I want you to understand something very important, she continued. This was not our military. This is a single ship from our merchant marine, hastily converted for combat duty. Our actual military fleets are still being mobilized. When they arrive, the Council will learn the difference between a warning and a war. Kestor felt something she had not experienced in 2 centuries of military service. Fear, real, bone-deep terror at facing an enemy she could not understand or defeat. Why? She asked. Why are you doing this? What do you want from us? We want you to leave us alone, Captain Chun replied. We have studied the Council for years. We know how you operate. You find young species and offer them help. Then you slowly take away their independence until they become just another part of your collective. You destroy their cultures and replace them with your own. You call it peace, but it is really just conquest by another name. That is not true, Kestor protested weakly. The Council brings civilization to primitive worlds. We share knowledge and technology. We make life better for everyone. You make life easier, Captain Chun said. But not better. You take away the struggle that makes a species strong. You remove the challenges that help them grow. You turn proud civilizations into dependent children who cannot survive without you. The human captain stood up from her chair. Humanity will not be your next victim, Admiral. We would rather fight every species in the galaxy than surrender our freedom to your peaceful slavery. And if that fight comes, we will win it. The communication ended. Admiral Kestor was left alone in the dark wreckage of her ship, surrounded by the bodies of her crew and the debris of her fleet. She had come here to teach the humans about the power of the Council. Instead, she had learned something about the power of humanity. They were not like other species. They did not want to join the galactic community. They did not want peace and cooperation and shared prosperity. They wanted something the Council had almost forgotten existed. They wanted to be free, and they were willing to kill anyone who tried to take that freedom away. As the surviving Council ships limped back toward home, carrying news of the greatest military disaster in galactic history, Admiral Kestor began to understand the terrible truth. The Council had spent 1,000 years building a peaceful empire. They had convinced themselves that their way was the only way, that all intelligent species would eventually see the wisdom of cooperation and unity. But they had never met a species like humanity, a species that would choose war over surrender, a species that would rather die fighting than live in comfortable chains. The Council was about to learn what happened when an unstoppable force met an immovable object. They were about to learn what war really meant. The emergency meeting had been going on for 6 hours. Council leaders from across the galaxy sat around the great table, their faces showing fear, anger, and confusion. On the main screen, the same terrible images played over and over. The wreckage of the 47th Fleet drifting in space like broken toys. Elder Vrixnu looked older than his 800 years. His hands shook as he read the reports coming in from across Council space. Each one brought worse news than the last. The humans have destroyed 12 more monitoring stations, he announced to the gathered leaders. They are moving systematically through all systems within their claimed territory. Any Council presence is being eliminated immediately. General Thekmore of the Military Council slammed his fist on the table. His red skin was flushed darker with anger. This cannot continue. We are the Galactic Council. We do not run from primitive. Barbarians? Primitive? Asked Science Director Limpa quietly. She was a small, delicate being whose people were known for their intelligence. General, these primitives just destroyed our most powerful fleet with a single ship. Perhaps we need to reconsider what we think we know about them. Admiral Kestor sat at the far end of the table. Her uniform was still torn from her escape pod, and burns covered half her face. She had barely survived the battle, and the experience had changed her. The confident warrior who had led the 47th Fleet was gone. In her place sat a broken soldier who had seen her entire worldview shattered. Tell them, Elder Vrixnu said gently to the Admiral. Tell them what you saw. Kestor looked up with haunted eyes. It was not a battle, she said in a voice barely above a whisper. Battles have rules, strategy, tactics you can understand and counter. This was something else entirely. She stood up slowly, as if her body weighed too much. The human ship moved through space like it was swimming through water. Our weapons could not touch it. Our shields might as well have been made of paper. Every shot they fired destroyed one of our vessels completely. No debris, no survivors. Just gone. Impossible, General Thekmore declared. No weapon can completely destroy matter. It violates the basic laws of physics. Their weapons do not destroy matter, Admiral Kestor replied. They do something worse. They make it stop existing. I watched entire ships simply vanish from reality as if they had never been built. Science Director Limpa leaned forward with interest. Fascinating. This suggests technology far beyond anything we have seen before. Perhaps they have learned to manipulate space-time itself, or even the fundamental forces that hold matter together. It does not matter how they do it, Elder Vrixnu said firmly. What matters is that they can do it. And they will do it to any council force that enters their territory. So we avoid their territory, suggested Delegate Corven from the trade. Council, let them have their 50 light-years of empty space. The galaxy is big enough for all of us. No, the voice came from the back of the room. Intelligence Director Zulkath emerged from the shadows where she had been listening. Her people were natural spies and information gatherers. If anyone knew the truth about humanity, it would be her. No? Elder Vrixnu asked. Why not? Zulkath activated her personal display device. Images appeared in the air above the table. Star charts, ship designs, population reports, all marked with human symbols. Because they are not stopping at 50 light-years, she said calmly. Our deep space monitors have detected human activity in over 200 systems. They are expanding in all directions at once, building bases, establishing colonies, creating an empire. The room fell silent. 200 systems was more territory than most council species controlled, and the humans had claimed it all in just a few months. Furthermore, Zulkath continued, we have intercepted some of their communications. They are not just expanding. Randomly, they have been studying us for years. They know about our military strength, our technology, our methods of operation. This was all planned long before their first ship entered council space. General Thekmore stood up angrily. You saying they have been spying on us? How is that possible? We would have detected any primitive surveillance attempts. Would we? Zulkath asked. We detected nothing because we were looking for primitive technology. Radio signals and simple probes. We never imagined they might have capabilities beyond Our own? She touched her control device again. New images appeared. These showed human ships unlike the one that had destroyed the 47th Fleet, massive vessels that looked more like mobile cities than warships. Construction ships that could build entire space stations in days instead of months. Their industrial capacity is beyond anything we have ever seen, she continued. A single human colony world can produce more ships in 1 month than our best. Shipyards can build in a year. They do not just have better weapons than us. They have better everything. How many ships do they have? Asked Elder Vixnu quietly. Zul. Kath was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was barely audible. We estimate at least 50,000 combat vessels. And they are building more every day. The number hit the assembled leaders like a physical blow. The entire council military had perhaps 10,000 ships scattered across hundreds of sectors. The humans had 5 times that number concentrated in one area of space. But that is impossible, Science Director Limpa protested. No species could build so many ships so quickly. The resources alone would require mining entire solar systems. They have, Zulkath replied simply. Our long-range sensors show that several systems in human space no longer contain planets, just asteroid fields and mining stations. They are literally taking apart worlds to build their fleet. Admiral Kestor laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. It was the laugh of someone who had lost their sanity. Do you want to know the worst part? She asked the room. The ship that destroyed my fleet was not even military. I intercepted their communications during the battle. It was a merchant vessel, a cargo hauler that had been quickly converted for combat. She looked around the table at the shocked faces. Their civilians fight better than our best soldiers. Their traders carry weapons that can destroy our mightiest warships. What do you think their actual military is like? Before anyone could answer, alarms began sounding throughout the chamber. Emergency lights flashed as automated systems announced. An urgent message. Council Central Command to all stations, came the mechanical voice. Priority 1 alert. Multiple human fleets detected approaching the Kepler sector. All civilian traffic is ordered to evacuate immediately. This is not a drill. Elder Vixnu activated the main display. It showed a tactical map of the Kepler sector, one of the Council's most important industrial regions. Red symbols were moving across the map like a spreading infection. Each symbol represented a human fleet. There were dozens of them. How many? Ships? He asked. The tactical computer calculated quickly. Estimated enemy strength, 15,000 vessels divided into 23 separate fleets. Estimated time to reach Council installations, 6 hours. General Thekmore stared at the display in horror. 15,000 ships? That is more than our entire military. But Elder Vixnu was looking at something else. The human fleets were not moving toward military targets. They were heading for the industrial worlds, the shipyards and factories that built Council technology, the mining operations that provided raw materials, the research stations that developed new science. They are not here to fight us, he realized. They are here to destroy our ability to fight back. Intelligence Director Zulkath nodded grimly. This is what I was trying to tell you. The humans do not think like us. They do not want territory or resources or political power. They want to make sure we can never threaten them again. By destroying our entire civilization, Science Director Limpa whispered. No, Zulkath corrected her. By making us weak. They will destroy our military and industrial capacity, but they will leave us alive. Alive and helpless and dependent on them for survival. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The Council had spent 1,000 years doing exactly the same thing to other species, finding young civilizations and gradually making them dependent on Council technology and resources. The humans had studied their methods and decided to use them in reverse. We have to evacuate, Elder Vixnu decided. Pull back all our forces and civilian populations from the threatened sectors. We cannot fight them with conventional methods. And then what? Asked General Thekmore. We cannot run forever. Eventually they will control the entire galaxy. Then we adapt, Elder Vrixnu replied. We learn. We find their weaknesses and exploit them. We turn other species against them. We do whatever we must to survive. Admiral Kestor looked up from her seat. Her burned face showed a bitter smile. Other species? She asked. Director Zulkath, show them the rest of your intelligence reports. Show them what the humans are doing in the systems they have already conquered. Zulkath hesitated, then activated her display again. New images appeared? These showed council species that had been living in the outer sectors, the Vectani mining colonies. The Morplex research stations, the Jib-Jib agricultural worlds. All of them were still there, all of them were still alive. But they were no longer under council control? The humans are not enslaving the species they encounter, Zulkath explained. They are freeing them from us. They are showing them records of how the council has controlled and manipulated them for generations. They are teaching them to build their own weapons and defend their own worlds. The images showed something that chilled the council leaders to their cores. Former council species working alongside human engineers, building ships together, training soldiers together, planning strategy together. An alliance, Elder Vrixnu breathed. They are building an alliance against us. Not just an alliance, Admiral Kestor said. A revolution. Every species we have ever conquered is joining them. Every world we have ever controlled is turning against us. The humans did not just declare war on the Council. They declared war on everything the Council represents. General Thekmore sat down heavily. His red skin had gone pale. How many species have joined them? All of them, Zulkath replied. Every single species in the sectors they have liberated. They are not forcing anyone to fight. They are just showing them the truth about Council rule. And once they see the truth, they all make the same choice. They choose freedom over security, Science Director Limpa said quietly. They choose struggle over comfort. They choose to stand with humanity against us. Elder Vrixnu looked around the table at his fellow leaders. These were the beings who had guided galactic civilization for 1,000 years. They had brought peace and prosperity to countless worlds. They had ended wars and famine and suffering across the galaxy, and now it was all falling apart. Not because they had failed, but because they had succeeded too well. They had made the galaxy so peaceful and comfortable that everyone had forgotten what freedom felt like, until the humans came to remind them. What are your orders, Elder? Asked General Thekmore. Vrixnu was quiet for a long time. Outside the chamber, he could hear the sounds of evacuation. Ships launching, personnel being moved to secure locations. The Council preparing to abandon everything they had built. We survive, he said finally. Whatever it takes, we survive. The humans think they can destroy us with their ships and weapons and revolutionary ideas. But the Council has endured for 1,000 years. We will endure this too. He stood up slowly, his ancient body aching with exhaustion and fear. And when the time is right, we will remind the galaxy why the Council exists. We will show them what happens when peace fails and war returns. We will make them remember why they chose security over freedom in the first place. But even as he spoke the words, Elder Vrixnu could see the doubt in his colleagues' eyes. They all knew the truth, even if they could not say it out loud. The Council's time was ending. The age of peace through control was over. The humans had shown the galaxy a different way to live. A harder way, but a free way. And there was no going back. 6 months had passed since the first human ship appeared in Council space. Now, massive human fleets surrounded Hegemony Prime, the capital world of the Galactic Council. But the humans were not attacking. They were doing something far worse. They were broadcasting. Elder Vrixnu stood in the Council's emergency bunker, deep beneath the planet's surface. Around him, the most powerful beings in the galaxy huddled like frightened children. The screens on the walls showed the same terrible fight. Thousands of human warships arranged in perfect formations around their world. Status report, he demanded from his aide. The human fleets maintain their positions, came the reply. No hostile actions detected, but their broadcast signals are reaching every inhabited world in Council space. We cannot block them. Vrixnu had tried everything to stop the human transmissions. Jamming devices, counter-broadcasts, even physical attacks on the relay stations. Nothing worked. The human messages continued to spread across the galaxy like a virus, carrying information that the Council had kept hidden for centuries. On the main screen, a human woman was speaking. Not a military officer this time, but a civilian. A teacher. Or scientist, by her appearance. She spoke calmly and clearly, as if she were giving a simple lesson to children. Citizens of the galaxy, she said. My name is Dr. Elena Vasquez. I am a historian from Earth. Today I want to tell you the true story of your government. The story the Council has hidden from you for 1,000 years. Vrixnu had heard this broadcast many times. He knew what was coming next. The human would show documents, recordings, proof of every secret the Council had ever kept, every lie they had ever told, every species they had conquered through deception and manipulation. General Thekmore, he called to his military commander. Any word from our fleets in the outer sectors? The general's red skin had turned almost gray with exhaustion. He had not slept in days, trying to coordinate the Council's response to the human invasion. The fleets report increasing desertion rates, he replied. Entire squadrons are refusing orders. Some have joined the human alliance openly. Others have simply disappeared into deep space. This was the genius of the human strategy. Vrixnu realized. They were not just conquering Council territory. They were convincing Council forces to conquer themselves. Every broadcast, every revelation, every piece of evidence they shared turned more beings against their own government. The Vectani Mining Consortium has declared independence, reported another aide. They are requesting human protection from Council retaliation. The Morplex research colonies have done the same, added a third. Also the Jib-Jib agricultural worlds and the Zenkari trade stations, the reports continued. System after system, species after species, abandoning the Council that had protected them for generations. All because the humans had shown them what protection really meant, intelligence. Director Zulkath emerged from her monitoring station. Her usually calm expression showed deep worry. Elder, she said quietly, we have a more immediate problem. The broadcasts are affecting our own people. Council personnel are beginning to question their orders. Some are asking if what the humans say is true. Of course it is not true, Vrixnu snapped. The humans are spreading lies and propaganda to weaken us. Everything the Council has done was for the good of the galaxy. But even as he said the words, Vrixnu knew they sounded hollow. The humans were not spreading lies. They were spreading truth. Uncomfortable, dangerous truth that the Council had spent centuries trying to hide. On the screen, Dr. Vasquez was now showing footage from the early days of Council expansion. Videos of peaceful integration that looked suspiciously like military conquest. Documents proving that species had been forced to give up their cultural traditions and adopt Council ways. Records showing how independent governments had been gradually replaced with Council administrators. Look at this carefully, Dr. Vasquez said to her invisible audience. Your leaders called this cooperation. They called it progress. They called it bringing civilization to primitive worlds. But what do you call it when someone forces you to change everything about yourself to make them happy? The word she did not say hung in the air like a curse. Slavery. That was what the humans called the Council system. Slavery with comfortable chains and pretty words, but slavery nonetheless. Elder, said a new voice. Admiral Kestor had entered the bunker. She looked different than she had months ago. The burns on her face had healed, but something in her eyes had changed. The absolute confidence of a career soldier was gone, replaced by doubt and exhaustion. Admiral, Vrixnu greeted her. How are our defenses? Useless, she replied bluntly. The human fleets could destroy this planet in minutes if they wanted to, but they do not want to. They want us alive to see what they are building. She gestured toward one of the smaller screens. It showed long-range sensor readings from across the galaxy. Everywhere the humans had gone, new construction was taking place. Not military bases or conquest platforms, but something else entirely. Schools, Admiral Castor explained. Hospitals. Research centers. Manufacturing plants owned and operated by local species, not by humans. They are not building an empire. They are building a community. A community of rebels and traitors, General Thekmore protested. A community of free beings, the Admiral corrected him. I have been studying their methods for months. They do not force anyone to join them. They simply offer an alternative to council rule. And given the choice, almost everyone chooses freedom. Vrixnu looked at his military commander with growing alarm. If even Admiral Kestor was beginning to doubt the council's methods, how long before others followed her example? Admiral, he said carefully, you swore an oath to protect the council and everything it represents. Are you questioning that oath now? Kestor was quiet for a long time. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. I swore to protect peace and prosperity for all galactic citizens, she replied. But what if the council is no longer serving that purpose? What if we have become the thing we once fought against? Before Vrixnu could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the bunker. Emergency lights flashed as automated systems announced an urgent message. Priority alert, came the mechanical voice. Human broadcast detected on all council emergency frequencies. Message marked as urgent communication from Human Command Authority. The main screen flickered and changed. Instead of Dr. Vasquez, it now showed a human military officer. Not Captain Chen this time, but someone older and more senior. His uniform bore symbols that the council's computers identified as indicating very high rank. I am Admiral Marcus Thompson of the Earth Defense Fleet, the human announced. I am speaking directly to the leadership of the Galactic Council. We know you are listening. Vrixnu felt a chill run through his ancient body. The humans were not just broadcasting to the general population anymore. They were speaking directly to him and his fellow leaders. 6 months ago, Admiral Thompson continued, humanity made a simple request. We asked to be left alone to develop our own civilization. In our own way. The Council's response was to send a fleet to force us into submission. That was a mistake. The Admiral's expression was calm and professional, but his eyes held the same cold intensity that Vrixnu had seen in Captain Chun's face. Since then, we have systematically dismantled the Council's ability to threaten human independence. We have liberated over 400 systems from Council control. We have freed 600 billion sentient beings from a system they never chose to join. And we are just getting started. Images appeared behind the Admiral. Star charts showing the extent of human expansion. Production statistics proving their incredible industrial capacity. Population counts demonstrating how many beings had joined their cause. But we are not here to conquer you, Admiral Thompson said. We are here to offer you the same choice we have offered everyone else. You can continue trying to maintain your empire through force and fear. Or you can accept that the age of galactic government is over and help us build something better. What exactly are you proposing? Vrixnu found himself asking, even though the human could not hear him. As if reading his mind, Admiral Thompson continued. We propose the dissolution of the Galactic Council as a governing body. In its place, we suggest a loose confederation of independent systems. Each species would govern itself according to its own traditions and values. Trade and cooperation would be voluntary, not mandated. And disputes would be resolved through negotiation, not force. The proposal was everything the Council had been created to prevent. It would return the galaxy to the chaos and conflict that had existed before the Great Unification, wars between species, economic instability, cultural fragmentation, all the problems that the Council had solved over 1,000 years of careful management. You say this will bring chaos, Admiral Thompson said, again seeming to read Vrixnu's thoughts. You believe that without the Council's guidance, the galaxy will tear itself apart. But look around you. Look at what we have accomplished in just 6 months. New images appeared. Former council species working together on massive construction projects. Mixed crews of different races serving on the same ships. Trade agreements negotiated directly between worlds. But it was also voluntary. No one was being forced to participate. No one was having their culture changed to fit a standard template. Everyone was free to choose their own path, even if that path led to conflict or failure. We offer you one final chance, Admiral Thompson concluded. Dissolve the council peacefully and help us transition to a new system of galactic governance. Your knowledge and experience would be valuable in building something better than what exists now. The Admiral paused, and his expression became harder. Or you can continue to resist, in which case we will continue to dismantle your empire, piece by piece until nothing remains but the memory of what happens when freedom challenges tyranny. The choice is yours. You have 24 hours to decide. The broadcast ended. The bunker fell silent except for the quiet hum of life support. Systems. Vrixnu looked around at his fellow leaders, these beings who had ruled the galaxy for centuries, who had brought peace and prosperity to countless worlds, who had sacrificed everything to create the stable, ordered civilization that now surrounded them. And now they were being asked to destroy it all. Well, he asked quietly, what do we do? General Feckmore stood up first. His red skin was flushed with anger. We fight, he declared. Even if we cannot win, we fight. The Council will not surrender to these human barbarians. With what? Asked Admiral Kestor. Half our fleets have deserted. Most of our industrial capacity has been destroyed or captured, and every day more of our own people join the human cause. Then we die with honor, the general replied. Better to die free than live as slaves to human ideals. Science Director. Limpa laughed bitterly. Die free? General, we have never been free. We have been trapped by our own success for centuries. Trapped by the need to maintain order at any cost. Trapped by the fear of what would happen if we let go of control. She looked around the bunker at the frightened faces of galactic civilization's leaders. Maybe the humans are right, she said quietly. Maybe it is time to let go. Maybe the galaxy is ready to govern itself without us. Treason, General Feckmore spat. You speak treason against everything we have built. No, replied Science Director Limpa. I speak evolution. The Council served its purpose for 1,000 years, but purposes change. Maybe our purpose now is to step aside and let something new take our place. Vrixnu listened to the argument with growing despair. His own people were turning against each other. The unity that had held the Council together for centuries was fracturing just when they needed it most. But perhaps that was the point. Perhaps unity that could only be maintained through force and control was not really unity at all. Perhaps what the humans offered was not chaos but a different kind of order. A Messier order based on choice rather than compulsion. He thought about the broadcasts he had been watching for months. The images of former council species working together by choice rather than decree. Building things together. Creating new art and science and culture, living freely, even if that meant living dangerously. For the first time in 800 years, Elder Vrixnu began to wonder if the Council had been wrong. Not about their methods, but about their goals. They had sought to create a perfect galaxy where nothing bad could ever happen. But in doing so, they had also made it impossible for anything truly good to happen either. 24 hours, he said finally. The human admiral gave us 24 hours to decide. Let us use that time wisely. But even as he said the words, Vrixnu suspected that the decision had already been made. Not by him or his fellow leaders, but by the billions of beings across the galaxy who had chosen freedom over security when given the chance. The age of the Council was ending. The question now was whether it would end with grace or with the destruction of everything they had built. Either way, the galaxy would never be the same. The trial was held on Nexus Station, a massive structure built in neutral space by the combined efforts of 50 different species. It had taken 3 years to construct, using materials and labor donated freely by worlds that had once been part of the Council Empire. Now it served as the meeting place for the new galactic community that had risen from the ashes of the old order. Former Council Elder Vrixnu stood in the defendant's dock, his ancient hands bound with simple restraints. Around him, the circular courtroom was filled with representatives from across the galaxy. Humans sat next to Vectani miners. Morplex scientists shared benches with Jib-Jib farmers. Even some of his own species were present, though they would not meet his eyes. The judge was not human, as many had expected. Instead, a Zenkari trade negotiator named Kelthera presided over the proceedings. Her people had been among the first to join the Human Alliance, and their natural diplomatic skills made them ideal for this kind of work. Elder Vrixnu, Judge Kelthera said in her careful, precise voice, you stand accused of crimes against galactic freedom. Specifically, the systematic oppression of over 600 species through deception, manipulation, and the deliberate destruction of cultural independence. How do you answer these charges? Vrixnu looked around the courtroom. These beings represented everything he had once controlled. Every world he had brought into the council fold. Every species he had helped to civilize and integrate into galactic society. Now they all stared at him with expressions ranging from anger to pity to simple curiosity. I answer that I am guilty of many things, he said finally, but not of the crimes you describe. Everything I did was for the good of the galaxy. Every decision I made was to prevent suffering and bring peace to countless worlds. Murmurs ran through the crowd. Some sounded angry, others sad. In the front row, he could see Admiral Kestor. She had testified against him earlier, describing the Council's military methods in detail. But her face showed no satisfaction at his predicament, only exhaustion and regret. You speak of peace, said the prosecutor, a human lawyer named David Martinez. But witnesses have testified that this peace came at the cost of freedom for billions of beings. That entire cultures were forced to abandon their traditions to join your system. Some traditions needed to be abandoned, Vrixnu replied firmly. Some cultures practice things that cause suffering, war, slavery, genocide. The Council ended those practices and replaced them with better ways of living. Better according to whom? Asked Prosecutor Martinez. You, the Council? Did you ever ask the beings whose cultures you were changing if they wanted your improvements? Vrixnu was quiet for a moment. It was a question he had never seriously considered during his centuries of service. The Council had always known what was best. For the galaxy, that was their purpose, their responsibility. We asked what they needed, he said finally. Food for the hungry, medicine for the sick, protection from their enemies. We gave them all of these things. In exchange for their independence, Martinez replied. You offered them safety in return. For submission, you made them dependent on your systems and then claimed they chose to join you freely. They did choose, Vrixnu insisted. No species was forced to become part of the Council. They all requested membership after seeing the benefits we could provide. A new voice spoke from the gallery. It belonged to a Vectani miner named Groxu, whose people had been among the first to rebel against Council rule. We requested membership. Because you destroyed our ability to survive without you, Groxu said, his gravelly voice carrying clearly through the courtroom. You flooded our systems with cheap goods that put our industries out of business. You offered us loans we could never repay. You created problems and then offered solutions that made us dependent on your support. Other voices joined in from around the room, species after species describing how the Council had gradually taken control of their worlds through economic manipulation and political pressure. How they had been made to feel grateful for losing their freedom. Judge Kelthara called for order, but Vrixnu had heard enough. He looked around the courtroom at all the faces staring at him, faces of beings whose worlds he had helped to govern. For centuries, whose problems he had solved, whose lives he had tried to improve. You want me to say I was wrong, he said quietly. You want me to admit that the Council was evil and that humanity saved you all from our tyranny. But I will not say that, because it is not true. The room fell silent. Even the prosecutor stopped his pacing to listen. Before the council, Vrixnu continued, this galaxy was chaos. Species fought constant wars over resources and territory. Billions died in conflicts that served no purpose but pride and greed. Entire civilizations destroyed themselves through violence and hatred. His voice grew stronger as he spoke, recalling the lessons he had learned in his youth about the dark ages before council rule. We ended those wars. We brought stability and prosperity to every corner of known space. We shared technology and knowledge freely. We protected the weak from the strong. We created a civilization where beings could live their entire lives without fear of violence or want. At what cost? Asked Prosecutor Martinez quietly. At the cost of some traditions that promoted suffering, Vrixnu replied. At the cost of some freedoms that led to conflict. At the cost of allowing every species to make their own mistakes instead of learning from the mistakes of others. He looked directly at the human prosecutor. You humans speak of freedom as if it is the highest good in the universe. But I have seen what freedom costs. I have seen the wars it causes, the suffering it allows, the chaos it creates when beings are left to govern themselves without guidance. And yet, came a new voice from the back of the courtroom, here we are. Everyone turned to see who had spoken. It was Captain Sarah Chun, now Admiral Chun of the Human Defense Fleet. She had been the first human to encounter the Council, the first to challenge their authority, the first to show the galaxy that there was an alternative to their rule. She walked forward through the courtroom, past the seated representatives and lawyers until she stood directly in front of Vrixnu's. Doc. Here we are, she repeated. 3 years after the fall of the Council, 50 species working together on this station. Hundreds more cooperating across the galaxy. Trade flowing freely between worlds. Disputes being resolved through negotiation, instead of force and remarkably little chaos or violence. 3 years is nothing, Vrixnu replied. Wait 50 years. Wait 100. When the first real crisis comes, when resources become scarce or territories are disputed, your alliance will fracture. Species will remember their old hatreds. Wars will begin again. And billions will die because you destroyed the system that kept them safe. Admiral Chun nodded thoughtfully. You may be right, she admitted. The future is uncertain. Conflicts may arise. Some species may choose violence over cooperation. People will make mistakes. She looked around the courtroom at all the assembled representatives. But at least they will be their own mistakes, she continued. Their own choices. Their own failures and successes, not yours to dictate. And when those choices lead to suffering, Vrixnu asked, when those mistakes cost lives, will you still think freedom was worth the price? Yes, Admiral Chung replied without hesitation. Because the alternative is worse. A galaxy where no one suffers because no one truly lives. Where no one fails because no one is allowed to try. Where no one fights because no one has anything worth fighting for? She gestured toward the diverse crowd filling the courtroom. Look around you, Elder. These beings are not here because they were forced to come. They are here because they chose to be. They built this station not because some government ordered it, but because they wanted to create something together. They are taking risks and making choices and, yes, sometimes making mistakes. But they are doing it as free beings, not as subjects of your empire. Vrixnu felt something he had not experienced in centuries. Doubt, not about the Council's methods, but about their fundamental assumptions. They had always believed that order was better than chaos. That security was more important than freedom. That the galaxy needed to be governed by wise beings who could prevent others from making harmful choices. But what if they had been wrong? What if the cure had been worse than the disease? He looked around the courtroom one more time. At the Vectani miners who had once been grateful for Council protection. At the Morplex scientists who had once depended on Council research grants. At the Jib farmers who had once needed Council trade agreements to survive. They all looked different now. Harder, perhaps. more uncertain, but also more alive, more present, as if they had been sleeping for centuries and had finally woken up. "I do not ask for forgiveness," Vixnu said finally. "I cannot apologize for trying to create a better galaxy, even if my methods were flawed. But I can accept responsibility for the consequences of my actions." Judge Kelthara leaned forward in her chair. "What sentence do you believe is appropriate?" "For your crimes?" Vixnu thought about this carefully. In the old days, enemies of the Council were either executed or imprisoned for life. But this new galactic community seemed to prefer different solutions. "I asked to be allowed to serve," he said. "Not as a leader or advisor, but as a witness. Let me travel between worlds and tell beings about the Council's methods. Let me explain how we controlled them and why we thought it was necessary. Let them learn from our mistakes so they do not repeat them." The courtroom erupted in surprised murmurs. This was not the defiant speech of a convicted tyrant, but something else entirely. An offer of genuine service to the community he had once oppressed. Admiral Chun looked surprised but pleased. "You would testify against your own legacy? Help others understand how to resist the kind of control the Council represented. If it prevents the rise of another Council," Vixnu replied, "then yes, power always seeks to concentrate itself. Freedom always requires vigilance to maintain. If my testimony can help future generations recognize the signs of creeping tyranny, then perhaps some good can come from the harm I have caused." Judge Kelthara conferred quietly with her advisors for several minutes. When she returned her attention to the courtroom, her expression was thoughtful. "Elder Vixnu," she announced, "this court sentences you to a lifetime of service to galactic freedom. You will travel wherever you are invited and speak truthfully about the Council's methods and motivations. You will help others understand how freedom can be lost gradually through small compromises and comfortable surrenders. And you will serve as a reminder that even those who mean well can become tyrants if they are not held accountable for their actions." The sentence was met with mixed reactions from the crowd. Some seemed disappointed that he would not be imprisoned or executed. Others appeared pleased that his knowledge and experience would be put to constructive use. Vixnu bowed his head in acceptance. It was not the punishment he had expected, but it was perhaps the one he deserved. To spend his remaining years explaining how the greatest empire in galactic history had become the very thing it was created to prevent. As the court session ended and beings began filing out of the chamber, Admiral Chun approached his dock one final time. "Do you really believe we will fail?" she asked quietly. "That this alliance will fall apart and the galaxy will return to chaos?" Vixnu considered the question seriously. Around them, beings of dozens of different species were talking and laughing together, making plans for new projects, arguing about trade routes and research priorities, living messy, complicated, uncertain lives. "I believe you will face challenges the Council never had to deal with," he said finally. "But I also believe you have something we never had. You have the knowledge that freedom must be earned and maintained every day. You have the understanding that no one species or government has all the answers. And you have the wisdom to know that some prices are too high to pay, even for peace." He looked directly into her eyes. "We tried to create a perfect galaxy. You are trying to create a free one? Perhaps that is the better choice after all." Admiral Chun smiled and extended her hand. After a moment's hesitation, Vixnu reached out and shook it. "Welcome to the messy, uncertain, dangerous business of freedom, Elder," she said. "I think you are going to find it more interesting than tyranny ever was." As she walked away, Vixnu reflected on the strange turns his life had taken. He had spent centuries building an empire that promised safety and prosperity to all. Now, he would spend his remaining years helping to ensure that such an empire could never rise again. It was, he realized, perhaps the most important work he had ever done, outside the station's windows. The stars shone with their ancient light, each one representing worlds where beings were now free to choose their own paths, free to succeed or fail on their own terms, free to build something new and strange and wonderful, or free to destroy it all and start over again. Either way, it would be their choice. And in the end, Vixnu thought that was what made all the difference. The age of the council was truly over. The age of freedom had begun, and despite everything that had happened, despite all the pain and chaos and uncertainty that lay ahead, Vixnu found himself looking forward to seeing what the galaxy would build next.